Good evening. It's a cold November night here in Gloucester Docks. It's the 20th of November, in fact, 2022, and I'm just about to upload part 17 in our series of Josefine's restoration. This part 17 is predominantly about the final rebuild of Josefine stern, but includes a whole load of other work that all took place in July and August of this year. I've aggressively edited it to try and get it into one episode, but it still ended up a little bit over an hour long, which I know is a long episode, so please forgive me for that. But I felt that it lost something if I cut it in half and you got to see it with a week or 2 weeks interval between. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. We did a huge amount of work and we're at a very exciting time now, and I want to really catch up so you can enjoy what we're doing at the moment. Very briefly, I'll just show you behind. Gloucester Docks always looks nice at night. A lovely picture of Jupiter up there, which you probably won't be able to see. Just the twinkling lights of Gloucester Docks this evening. Little Christmas tree over there. And hope you enjoy the episode. I'm going to go and take it. We don't need anymore. Yeah, it's a spare, yeah. It's just as well I ordered it in such advance, isn't it? Good morning. It's I think it's the 5th of July and it's 10 to 10. We're just about to have a coffee break, Randy and I. 5th of July 2022, that is. And I just thought I'd quickly bring you up to date. I'm just about to put one, pay just that seam there and pay the seam there, because I've done the seams in between. I just wanted to do the butt ends, if you like. But I've got to dump those. They haven't been dumped yet. And if I start caulking that now before it's dumped, there's a risk of pushing the covering boards off. And so Dominic's going to come next week and show me where he wants that cut. We're going to make a nice curve and make a decision about where to do that, and then I've got to fare that back into a nice curve, and then I can fix those and get on with it. So it's probably another couple of weeks work. This will all be done with a bit of luck. Randy, by the way, has been painting the hull. The hull is done on the forward half, but not the bulwarks. So there's that to do. Still got a little bit of caulking to do here. You see these seams here again. We didn't want to start forcing stuff into these seams, which would have opened them until they're fixed, which they are now, or they will be once I put those dumps in. And here's the rest of the tackle out here. So you can iron them a little bit afterwards, especially in this heat. That's one of the things that's changed. When I was doing it in the winter, I couldn't really do that, but now I can. You can just sort of iron them afterwards to smooth out any bubbles or anything. So I've got to do the same there. No, I'd rather saw. The fine tool's not accurate enough.
Okay, you know, I haven't nothing against that, but normally they're not very good. The cause is actually quite a good one.
No, I use a saw actually. I think I've been
essentially set your saw at 20mm depth cutting depth,
yes,
and run it along. Yeah, that means it's safer when you do your sawing if you've done that first.
That's right.
Okay? So, you happy with that?
Yeah, lovely.
You can see I've done that reasonably good, with a ship saw.
Yeah.
I'm not being too gay about these, you know, I'm measuring mark an inch and a half.
Yeah.
Right, that's all marked out, Reg. You're happy with that?
Yeah, great.
I'll leave you to do that then.
All done. Right, they're all looking good, and now ready to take the capping rail. So Ren is going to paint those now. Good afternoon, it's August the 2nd 2022. My job for this afternoon is to dump these covering boards at the stern. I've just finished fairing all of this and cutting the tenons on the top. A little bit of sanding just to do to finish off under there, but the main job is now to fasten them. They've been fastened in the past. There are various fastenings down through into various joggles and things underneath here, but what we're doing today are putting dumps. That's not a dump, but that looks just like that. It is an old piece of dump actually. So what we have to do is drill a hole through the edge of this wood 2-inch plank, all the way through here and into the waterboards. That was not too bad because it's not such a big distance, but you can see on these it's enormous, and so what I'm having to use are specially made drill bits. That's a normal drill bit here, but it's had a piece of bar welded on to give me the length, and you can see that only just even then fits. So just to give you an idea, that's the length I'm having to drill there is 2 foot, and on some of them it's a little bit more than 2 foot, so I have to drill a hole 2 foot long through a sandwich 2 inches thick, and you can imagine that's very easy to get it wrong. and I have a couple of times, twice actually. These are relatively easy. These dumps here are due through this short section of covering board and into the stanchion, so that's pretty easy. They go in at an angle pretty much through the corners, keep it away from this joint. And this one ends around about there, so that's about 19-20 inches long. I've done that one went okay. That's another dump there into a stanchion, in this case a single one in the middle. The reason there are two here is because it's where two covering boards join, so you're supporting both of the boards here. You don't need to do that, it only needs one, and I've done that one. So let's have a go. I'll show you how to do this. It's very straightforward. I've already done the drilling, which is the nerve-wracking and the hard bit. Now all I do is I use this little wire, stick that in there, making sure you can see it in the gap here. You can see where it goes through. You can imagine drilling over 2 foot, it's really difficult to get that perfect, so I'm sort of happy with that. Just basically measuring the depth of the hole, and that says that the depth of that hole is 20 3/4 of an inch. I need to make sure that there's enough, it penetrates deep enough that I can put a plug in the end. So they've got to countersink into here, so I can plug them afterwards. And 3/4 of an inch also allows for the possibility that the dump doesn't make it all the way to the end. I mean, there could be swarf, that should be okay. What you don't want to end up with is getting the dump almost in and ending up with a sort of a couple of inches sticking out here. You're in a bit of trouble then. This is the bar that we're using. So we measure 20 inches. Good morning. It's I think it's the 4th of August, 20 to 10. If I look a bit bleary-eyed, it's because I've been working upside down for all this morning, a couple of hours. Just turn that down. So yeah, it's just these two seams that were left, and they were left because we hadn't reshaped the stern at that stage, so that's what I'm doing now. So it's as you can see, it's an upside down job. I've also been working on the chain plates. You can see there's one chain plate here. These are the mizzen chain plates, and we've added a third, by the way, just to complicate matters, for the topmast. The topmast shroud used to be bolted onto the back of one of the ordinary chain plates, and so I've got to shape them basically, especially obviously the one we've added. But because this all changed, because all these planks have been replaced when we were in dry dock, and the covering board and everything has been replaced, the shape of them is slightly different. They never fitted very well in the first place, to be honest with you. But this is one of the original ones, and it's been, I templated this, and then Dominic has bent it to shape. What it needs now is just a slight little tweak. It needs a little twist in it. As you can see, it's proud just on one side there, look. So it's just loosely in place at the moment. Dominic's going to have a quick look at it and then give it a tweak, take it back so he knows how much to tweak it by. This one also needs a tweak. I've taken this off because obviously I've got to caulk the seams behind it, and then the third one sits here, and again yesterday I templated that. This one just needs a bit there, which I've already done to the end, and the next one along I've done one run here. I'm about to put the second one in, look, and I've just finished that. I've filled that with two runs. You have to be a little bit careful, especially at these edges here. You know, when you're cooking it, you can't be too aggressive in some places, you know, not to force up the covering board. But generally speaking, it's fantastic. You know, it's really coming together nicely, as you can see. When I'm doing things like this and I'm filming stuff that we're doing now, when I look back at the condition that it was in originally, I have, you know, living nightmares about it. You know, it's, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up because you think, oh my god, how did we ever tackle that? But you literally just you know, a step at a time. It's the only way you can. But yeah, what a difference now to what it was before. As soon as this is done, as soon as I've done this caulking, Randy will come out and vinegar all this to death so that it doesn't dry out, and we can paint it. It's nice and firm. So it's a little bit soft there. There's quite a big seam there, so I'll mark that when I get to that. That will swallow quite a lot of oakum. Where you've got a big gap, by the way, you know, for any reason you've got a gap where it actually literally goes right through, what you can do, because otherwise you just keep pushing oakum through that gap, what you can do is, instead of caulking in the normal way square to the seam, what you do is sort of you sort of back caulk it. So you take the oakum like this, and instead of going straight up, you go in at an angle and push it back on itself. So you're sort of like that. I've got a bit here that needs that treatment, so you just go back on it like that and pack it in. So you get a nice wedge of oakum in there. Otherwise you're just going to push it straight through and it's just going to pile up on the inside of the boat. See, that's taken up now. And then you can finish it off in the normal way. I'll come to the end there, so I just back this off. So that's first pass. That's with what they call a knife. I think it's called a knife iron. So it's got a sharp edge, look, which pushes it right down into the bottom of the thinnest part of the caulking seam. And then you progressively work your way up. I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, but that's my iron hardening up, and then I've got a thicker one again of that, depending on what seams you're doing. Obviously you use whatever it takes. You don't want an iron that's so thick that when you try to harden it up, the iron sticks. If the iron actually sticks in the seam, then it's too thick, so you come down. And that's where this one of Dominic's, and you'll see the difference. I mean, if you look at that, it probably doesn't look, I don't know how much of this you'll able to see, but if you look at those two irons, you probably don't think there's a lot of difference between them. It wouldn't matter, but it matters enormously. And this one of Dominic's, I think he fashioned that himself, but it's just perfect, whereas mine, which is a fractionally thicker, look, can't be more than, I don't know, 1/4 of a mil or 1/2 a mil thicker, mine will stick in the seam. So it obviously, seams from one boat to another vary, but on this particular project that one has been invaluable. So with this seam it's quite large, look, so I can go jump straight to mine, which I'm going to do now. Oh, flaming hell. Something sharp sticking in the side of me. Every bloody muscle is aching. Ow, ow, oh god, that hurts. Let's try it lying down on my back. Oh, that's a bit better. Sometimes you can find a position where it doesn't hurt so much. It was about 2 years ago, I think it's 2 years almost to the day, that we took these chain plates off. So a bit of a milestone in putting them back on. Right, I'm going to take the bottom bolt out now, okay? Hopefully. The other thing about doing this particular job, is that it means when I finish these, which hopefully will by the end of today, it does mean that we can actually step our masts. So that's a big deal. There is a shipwright here called Charlie. Hello Charlie, if you're watching this. We were going to send you up behind these tanks because apparently you're the smallest and can get into the smaller spaces, but I felt too bad about that, so I thought I'm going to have to make an effort myself. So you've been saved from this job. All the hard work has already been done in one sense. I mean, this is a terribly uncomfortable, but the hard work in getting the chain plates ready and shaped and drilling the holes, that was a real pain. You know, trying to find a pathway for the bolts so that we could get to them on the inside is no easy task. It really isn't. So that was difficult. And remember, you can't just put them anywhere. The chain plates have to be at a very specific angle. You know, we had an angle that we had decided on for all of them, and they have to be like that. You know, otherwise they're not going to stay the mast properly. So it's a real challenge. That was more of a mental challenge. This is much more of a physical challenge. Come on, one more. Go on. That's it. That wasn't enough. Right, now's the difficult bit. Oh, come on. I'm hung up on a bolt. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, flaming hell. Oh, 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 oh. Ow. 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 Oh. Oh. This is not right. Oh. Done. Now I've got to do it all over again on the other side. So there you go. I thought I'd just bring you and give you an idea of a little insight into the joys of restoring your own classic working boat. Oh. Oh. All done. Nighty night. Good morning, it's Wednesday 27th of July 2022 and it's, what's it say over there, 8:30 in the morning. Dominic's just popped over to the workshops. He's been this morning fitting those that beautiful collar. That's for our main mast. It's not finished, that's the first stages of it. So what he's done, I should have been filming this yesterday while he was doing it and I forgot. He's made these this beautiful collar in 4 pieces, as you can see it there. And he was just been explaining to us what he's done. He's routed it into the deck, I think by 1/4 of an inch. It doesn't need much, just to hold it in position so that it doesn't so it can't move around, so you don't need it to be very deep. So he's routed the whole thing and it's sat down in that. It's deliberately made so that it's not exactly the same size as the hole that the mast sits in. Now the mast goes through the hole and then it's wedged with wooden wedges all the way around, and you don't want the wedges acting on this collar. This collar, by the way, is there obviously to stop water running down the mast. You know, you're going to have water all over the deck here. You've got to find a way of stopping it from hitting the mast and then descending in down below, and this is part of that system. So it's slightly bigger so that the wedges are not acting on it. Dominic is now going to put a big bevel on this so that square edge will be taken off. Basically the boot, which is the canvas coat, if you like, that goes around the base of the mast to stop the water getting in, the boot will come partially down the mast and then it will smoothly run down the face of this collar down onto the edges here, and then it's held in with, I think Dominic was saying, lead strips and copper nails into the base round here. So it's quite an involved job. This is one of those things that's been tried and tested obviously over the decades, that works, and it's still done the same way today. So that's really exciting. That's going in. You can tell we're getting closer and closer because without that the mast can't go in. So now once that's finished, the main mast can go in. The chain plates are already on. While I'm talking to you, I'll just briefly show you what else is going on this morning. I've just made these for the bottom of the wheelhouse locker. They all fit down in there to stop things sitting on the deck. Between the surfaces of whatever you put and the deck, it will rot. So with the locker itself, I've made these little feet, which was Dominic's idea, at the corners, and there'll be one in the middle, so that the contact points are minimised. It's bolted or screwed into the wheelhouse. Those slats, as I say, go in there and keep everything off the actual deck itself. So I've put those that battening in the position, and I've made those. Randy's about to go and paint those now. Nice and fresh.
Just want to make sure I got it on the wood completely.
Yeah, it'll help. Well, it's very tactile.
Yeah, so it's good stuff.
I suppose. Very good. Hold it there a minute. No, stop, back a bit. That's it. Now,
Up.
No, tip it down. It's just missing the bottom. That's it. Got it.
That's it.
Got it.
Alright, just hold it there, Reg. I'm going to get some bolts.
Do you want more tension?
A little bit up, Reg.
Yeah. Hang on a minute.
Alright, stop.
That's about where it was before.
Yeah, stop there.
Good morning, it's what is it, Friday 12th of August, and it's 10:10. That's coffee time here normally, but I'm in the middle of paying the deck with pitch, so it's a sort of job you can't really stop. And anyway, I'm just waiting for some new pitch to boil up, so I thought I'd just show you what I'm up to. This is the sort of job that you really need to be prepared in advance and have all your tools ready. So you see I have my little metal plate here, which is for basically scraping the tools off and keeping anything hot away from the deck. And I've made up this little chute which gets in behind the stanchions. Because of the angle they make with the deck, you need to get in it. It's very difficult to pour straight into it, obviously, because it's a big overhang, so you do whatever you can. There's just a bit of tubing which I've cut up, cut down the seam of it. Is that I'm working from the pontoons, which means I can actually do, for a change, I can do this job standing up, as you can see, which is really nice, because normally I'm down on my knees and it hurts like hell. It's just this rear section, remember, that I'm doing. All the rest of the deck has been done before. I caulked it yesterday with oakum. You see all these seams. Very difficult to do these overhanging seams. You see what I mean? With this seam here, it's very difficult to get into this area here. Very difficult to caulk it, and very difficult to get the pitch in there, which is where my little snooty thing comes in. Just need to stir that a little bit. You see it goes all a bit frothy. But when it gets to that stage, you know it's pretty much ready. And the way I judge it is by pouring it and seeing how well it pours.
And going up to Scotland or something, she's real. I'm so bored, you know.
But right now it's midday, and it's Jeremy. Thank you very much, DK. Yes, Friday afternoon already.
Right, job done. What I want to say, my experience, this is last time I did this was in the winter when it was probably about 5 degrees, and now it's 35 degrees, and there's a huge difference. And overall I much prefer it now. I mean, I want to get out of this heat. Actually, I'm not saying I prefer to work in this heat. I don't, it's horrible, but I prefer the ease with which this job goes when it's hot. The pitch stays more malleable much longer, you don't have to rush so much. I suppose that's what it is, and you can repair. You have time to make repairs where you've got lots of bubbly bits and stuff. And it stays hot. I mean, some of this is still quite soft, which is not bad, because it will find its way, you know, it will settle down nicely, which will be good. You wouldn't want to sort of be working on it. You'd have to be careful if you were going to be walking on it, for instance. If it was something you're going to be walking on immediately, you'd probably want to wash it down with cold water so that it doesn't stay tacky. And then we're going to varnish this in a minute, and these will all be painted white, so we won't worry about little bits of smeared bitumen on there. Probably scrape a little bit of that off, but that will all be over painted, so that's no problem. So big moment for us. That's the stern deck done. Big moment, hurrah hurrah. To do that little section there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stanchions around them and the covering board in between. I started at 8 o'clock this morning, 7:45 actually, and it's now I think about 12:30. So that's non-stop. I mean, it's you know, it's a full-on job. It's tricky, and when it starts going wrong it's ugly, but if you do it properly, you know, and you get everything set up, it's worth the effort. You know, you get a nice finish. Okay, enough from me. I've got to go and sit down and have something to eat. Ciao, see you later. Oak does need protection, unlike the pine deck. It can't handle things on its own. It needs a bit of help, so it either needs painting or varnishing, some of the protective coat on it. Just left to its own devices, it'll shrink and expand and split and do all sorts of horrible things. The one thing about the varnish you do have to be aware of is it gets very slippery when it's wet. That seems to be only the case when you're barefooted, and I hate shoes, so whenever I get the chance to get my tootsies out, I do. I love the cool air around my toes. More information than you needed. Yeah, barefoot and a varnished surface like this, it's quite lethal, so you have to be careful. I think in shoes we found it's perfectly okay. It's something to do with the soft skin of your feet on that varnish. The two together don't mix, literally. Stern deck complete. Great moment for us. That's a big deal. Good morning. It's Thursday 18th of August, 7:30 in the morning, and I'm just going to quickly show you what we've been doing this week. I mean, as very often happens, it's a bit of a frantic week, and I didn't get a chance to film it while I was doing it, so I'm just going to bring you up to speed on it. And we've been working here on the bow, so I think I'll start on the outside. We've moved the pontoon round to do this job, so let me just get down there and not breaking my neck. Step down. So here we are at the bow of the boat, And what we've been doing here is working on the stem. Now our stem is made up of various bits. You can see some bits that have been scarfed in, but it's also made up of bits vertically. I suppose over the years damage or rot has meant that, you know, it's been messed about and bits have been added. I don't suppose that's that unusual, but because of that, Dominic recommended that we put this strap, this stem strap in here. Again, not unusual on boats, but not normally as lovely as this one. It's normally a thin metal strip that runs the length of the bow. This beautiful piece of metal Dominic found in the workshops from a previous project, and it's magnificent. It's chunky as hell, weighs a ton, you can barely lift it, and as luck would have it, it was already pre-drilled in with holes that suited our project. When we were in dry dock, Nigel made this strap all the way around our stem at this level, because we had a little bit of rot in the wood here, so he made this lovely piece and welded it to the bit that was below it. So it's now metal all the way up from our keel, which is a metal shoe, all the way up to here. And now we've added this strap which has been welded here, and that's what happened yesterday. Jamie suddenly got the chance to do the welding, so it was all hands to the pump. We've now got a metal strap effectively from the keel all the way up to the top, and the reason why that's important is because the fore and aft strength of the standing rigging very much relies on the strength here in the stem. These are 9-inch spikes, except for here and here where we had to put bolts through, which was good in a way, so it's all beautifully pulled together. Plough anchor fits on here. It's pulled up, the chain is pulled up through there and through this horse hole to the winch, and then it actually houses, the anchor is housed in here. I did that yesterday, that's all in place, that's now in permanently. I've got to put some paint on it, which I'm about to do. I've got a couple of screws to put in here just to pull that down nice and tight. That's all been packed with red lead before I put it in, so it's all solid as hell now, look. There is another bracket that runs from this point down onto the top of the covering board there, and I'll put that in probably this, I may do it this morning, we'll see how I get on. But what I do need to do is paint all these areas that were cut, because all of this was galvanized originally. We had it all galvanized, and of course where you cut the ends of bolts off you lose the galvanizing, so it's got to be repainted. So So that's all the bits and pieces, the nuts and bolt heads, all nicely undercoated. They'll get another couple of coats, and the stem, so I'll put 2 more coats of undercoat on before we put any top coats on. But for now I've got to move on. That's me done for this morning on the bow. Now to the stern. We have now moved the pontoon back into position at the stern of the boat so that I can continue to construct the bulwarks around the stern there, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Our job now is to prepare for the slats that will run all the way around. The bulwarks here are horizontal planks, but you couldn't put, well, I suppose you could bend them all the way around the back, but that's not normal. What you do is you put vertical slats, not as wide as this, about 3/4, half the width of those. We'll be using this timber but cut down, and in a fan-like fashion these slats work their way all the way around the back of the boat like that. So they have to have something to fix to, and they fix to joggles, bits of timber between the stanchions. So a joggle at the bottom and a joggle at the top, and then the staves fit to that. And the joggles obviously have got to be presented nicely and horizontal with the deck. You'll be able to see the joggles from the inside of the boat, of course. It's great, and I'll show you how this works. This is the deck here, so that sits on the deck. This corner of this little rectangle just meets the backward slope of the stanchion. You then take your outer and you basically, all you have to do now is maneuver the router inside that guide, and that's the shape you get. This is the top one, so that's 32. So there's quite a few to do, so let's crack on. We put in our little spacer here to get the right distance out towards the edge until it just reaches. The nice thing about working with the pontoons here is that this is at sort of waist level, so it makes it much easier than having to get down on my hands and knees, as I am now. So spacer in there, look, and then I move it until it's exactly that point there. So that's right there, and then I take my screwdriver and screw the template into the stanchion. It'll leave a hole in the stanchion, of course, but it's easy to plug, and they're all going to be painted anyway. I've got my depth all set, so I place that on the bottom. There we go, my very first joggle slot, or whatever it's called. So there you go, I've just got to now go around the rest of the stanchions doing that. Nice. You never know, by the end of today, really, I suppose this job ought to be done, so I'll pull my finger out and get on with it now, and I'll check in with you later.
Like a bloody big walrus. Maybe. Oh, bloody roll of this. Do this little bit, and then I'll have to do the rest later on when I get these floorboards back on.
And here I am again. It's only taken around about 15-20 minutes to do this, much quicker than I thought. And I suppose that's all to do with the setup and having the the right method and using these guides as I've shown you. So here they are, cut out. I haven't done that one yet. I've done one side of them. Now I'm going to do the other side. So I've done all on this side, so you can see. There's all the cutouts. Look, all at the same height, all the same depth, all parallel to the deck. And now I've got to do the other sides. I'm just about to start today's work, which is doing the templating for the noggins that go between the stanchions here and which hold the slats of the bulwark. So you can see I've already done the cutouts. I've now got this rail on top of the stanchions, which is being used as my template for the curvature. This stanchion here needed a little bit of work. This side needed some 1/4 of an inch taken off it. So I've just planed that this morning. You can see the plane marks there. So anyway, I'm just going to sand those off. I'll put my curve back again, and I've got my templating here ready to do. Dominic showed me yesterday how to do a bevel board. This is instructions to the person who's going to cut the noggins that go between. All of that I'm going to show you in a minute, but for the moment I'm just going to get on and sand those marks off, and then we'll be back in action. So that's all nicely just finished off, look. But I don't need to be too precious with it, because of course the slats are going to cover all this around here, but it's more to do with the shape. That's the most important thing, because whatever shape these are, of course, is the shape that the slats will end up at. You'll often see shipwrights walking around with bits of card in their pocket or their hand, which has got funny hieroglyphics on it, and they call those bevel boards. Put the template in position there, and then draw a line along this edge following our top guide. Whatever curve we've got on our noggin between here, it will dictate that shape. That's that bevel, and I do that obviously at both ends because they're different. The other bevel that's required, and it's easier to measure, it's this bevel. So it's the angle that the stanchion makes to the bottom of the noggin. You don't measure the angle, you mark it on a board. Take a piece of board with a nice straight edge like this down here, you lay it on there, and then you draw a line along your bevel gauge, okay? And you can see I've already done that one. Port side 1, outside bevel, because what Dominic's going to do is take the bigger angle, if you like, and cut the noggin to that all the way around, and then it can be shaped using an electric plane to bring it back down to this one. So he's taking the bigger angle, and he'll do that all the way around. So he only needs one outside bevel angle. So that's a bevel board. Get a bit of glue out of there, so that should do it. Make sure that it covers there, that's it. So that's that end done. Now I've got to do this end on there where it's going to meet. Get the pen to work. This edge here. There's the nice curve for the outside. Now what I'm going to do with these, because it's 3 inches there and 3 inches there, I'm just going to measure 3 inches at various points and then join them up to get the inside curve. So I'm doing my end bevels this side and my outside bevels that side. There we go. Draw the line on, mark which is the angle. So what I need to do now, and I've got the bevels, so I'm nearly home really, so you can see it doesn't take long once you get into your stride. Remember, this is my first one solo. It would be boring to watch anymore, so I think that shows you what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the afternoon, and I'll catch you later when it's all done. We've just finished doing the last templates on the top of the rail, the top noggins. Now we've got to do the bottom noggins, and I'm going to have to set up the rail, which is what we're about to do now. I have with me my lovely assistant Randy this morning, who is helping. What I'm about to do now is, and I put the first nail in, as you can see there, is to provide a platform for this batten, which my lovely assistant is holding, and we've got to get a nice curve all the way around the backs of all of these stanchions. So there we go. that should do. Perfect curve. You need the batten to move really so that it finds its own nice curve. You don't really want to nail it down on each stanchion because then you're putting in an artificial curve on it. Good morning. It's Tuesday, 23rd of August, and my job for today is to fit these noggins. I think that's the one I'm going to put in now. These are all the others. This is all of the cut-offs from other timbers. Mostly it's the timbers that we use to do these covering boards and water boards. So these are the bits and pieces that were left over, and Dominic found all the nice pieces that would do the job. Amazing how much he managed to get out of the scraps. So that's my job for today. Cut these end bevels, cut the plane the outer bevel, but on the bottom ones, which you can see a little bit wider, once I've cut the bevel at the end, I've got to take a little notch out on the bottom ones. I'm going to plane down from that point at the back all the way down 1/4 of an inch to the inside edge, and the reason for that is so that we end up with a slope on these so that water doesn't collect on them when they're sitting. As you can see where it is there, once the slats are in, it would be an area where water potentially could sit. The top ones are different because they'll be tucked up underneath the capping rail, so we didn't need to do that. So a slightly different approach on top and bottom. The bottom one's more complicated and more work, and that's where I'm starting. See, and there you can see that little joint, that little insert that's got to be taken off the end. I can show you, I knock it out, how that works. So there's the inserts that it goes into, that's the end, look, and you can see how that tapers now, the top tapers. Well, hope you can see that. The same on the other end. There you go. So that's my job today, is to go around and do all of those, the rest of those, so that they're nice and tight and fit. And it provides a fantastic base. I mean, that is so strong, it's incredibly strong. It actually creates the perfect base on which to fit now all the slats. So what I'll do is I will film a little bit of me preparing the next one, just so you get the idea of what's involved, and then as before I'll just crack on and do the job, because you'll only want to see one of them being done. All actually. So we just put that on there, port stanchion to end bevel. I need to set the saw up to cut that. That's there. Lock that off before it moves. Change the angle of this. So what I've now got to do is take a notch out of this top corner, there and there, and I just run that up the side of the stanchion, look, so that shows you, or shows me, where it's got to be faired back to. Just knock that out, and now I've got to take that part off there. I've got to plane off, and then I've got to plane the top so that it slopes down towards this front edge. To cut these end pieces, these little recesses, by the way, I'm just using a hand saw. I find that, by far the easiest to do. So there you go. Look, nearly down to the line. Just to make sure I don't take any off this edge, or very little anyway. I put a pen mark on there, look, so I know if I start taking that out, I know I'm too far over. we go. We've planed down to the line, look, to nothing here, and we haven't touched that outer edge. And the same on that one, look, to the line. So it's a nice little job, look. Starting to really come together. You see that from the inside, look. So we'll put some vinegar paint on them and slip them in and screw them down while the paint's wet, so they'll slide in nicely and the paint will help seal them in. But I'm actually quite pleased with the result. They're all nice and tight. I could have got them tighter. They're not perfect by any means, but you know, not bad. Good morning. It's Friday, 26th of August 2022, and it's, goodness, 10 to 9. It's late. Been fiddling about with all sorts of little things this morning. Anyway, I just wanted to show you the stern, Josefine stern. We've been working so hard on this for the last 4 days that I've barely had time to film it, and we're at another turning point stage, about to begin another phase of this. So here's the stern, which you'll be quite familiar with by now. So that was completed yesterday, and late yesterday I mocked up, as you can probably see, with wool where the staves are going to be. And apart from the capping rail, the fitting of stern bulwark staves is the final stage of the rebuild of Josefine's stern. But there is a little bit more to it than the video of me cutting and fitting those staves reveals. So by way of introduction and an explanation, I've produced this little animation. The fan shape of the stern bulwarks dictates that the staves must necessarily be tapered to suit. The planks we're using are 90mm wide, allowing for a 3mm bevel down one side reduces that to 87mm. And dividing 4.6 meters by 87mm tells us that we're going to need 53 staves. Dividing 3.6 meters, the bottom diameter, by 53 reveals that each stave must taper down to 68mm at the bottom if they're all going to be even all the way around. But it's not quite that simple. Cutting all the staves equally may not result in a well-balanced, attractive finish. The unequal spread and inclination of the stanchions may well, as it does in our case, lead to a mismatch between the two. The staves will begin and end well, aligned to the end stanchions, but not in the middle. But of course this will only be observable from inside the boat, where you can actually see the stanchions. You don't see the stanchions from the outside of the boat, so they don't distract. But it is important to check the result nevertheless, because there may be other issues. What we did was to test by winding wool up and down between suitably spaced, lightly fixed nails, and then we rowed out in the dinghy so that we could look at it from outside as well as in. There is an alternative, and that is to treat each section between the stanchions separately and to cut the staves to suit those sections. This will result in a perfect match between the alignment of the staves and the stanchions, but it won't necessarily result in an overall pleasing effect. We tried both techniques. We tested both with the wool, and eventually we opted for the first option, in other words, to treat the bulwarks as one piece. And then when I was fitting them, I tweaked it a little bit just to smooth out the overall effect, and we're pleased with the results. It worked, at least on Josefine, but of course every boat's different, every stern is different. As to the staves themselves, apart from the obvious taper, each stave has to have multiple bevels uniquely cut for each stave, top and bottom. A bevel down one side to allow the staves to butt up correctly on a curved and twisting surface, and finally decorative bevels on the outside edges. The following video shows the routine that I found best for cutting and fitting these staves. goes in there. because I'm just about to finish off the last stages of them. This morning I've just done a little bit of sanding on top of here with a belt sander, just to get that nice and just get that surface nice and level. It was pretty good actually. There was not much to take off. And done a little tweaking on the bottoms there as well. Randy's going to paint the inside. She's just cleaned up the oil-based mastic here, just taken off the lumpy stuff, and she's going to be painting that really. Anyway, what I've done this morning is I've just filled all the screw holes, like this for instance. So there you go, that's finished. Doesn't take long. An hour's work this morning to fill it. I'll get a couple of coats of vinegar on there this morning, and then we can get the top coat on. Happy days.
She was sitting in a cellar together for ages. Social media picked up these photos of false promotion calls. More and more.
Coat on. Randy, as you can see, is doing a bit on the inside. There you go, coming on nicely.
Showing how many clues they've missed.